In this video, I will give you 4 powerful journaling techniques to help you heal from a toxic relationship. These journaling techniques might seem very simple, and that's because they are. I give these techniques to all of my clients, and believe me when I tell you that the simplest techniques are often the most effective ones. So let's start with the very first technique, which I call venting. Do you know this overwhelming thoughts going on in your head why your toxic ex did what he or she did? What if you would have behaved differently? Could have things been differently? What if this? Why that? And this just keeps going on and on and on, and eventually leads to you questioning yourself, questioning your decision, and asking yourself if all of this really is your fault. These thoughts can really keep you stuck, especially if they keep going on all the time. But instead of just letting them go on in your mind, I want you to take a pen and a piece of paper and write them down. And no worries, you can do absolutely nothing wrong here. All you need to do is write down whatever is in your mind. There doesn't need to be any coherence between the words. You don't need to watch out for grammar or spelling. You don't even need to be able to read it afterward. But you need to get it out of your mind so your brain can fully process it. So write it down, and it will ease all of these thoughts tremendously. Because like this, you're giving your brain an outlet where it can let go of these things and doesn't need to bring them up again and again, because hey, they are written down, so your brain doesn't need to worry anymore. Try it, do it consistently, and let me know how it works for you. The second thing you want to do to start healing from a toxic relationship is to write a toxicity list. I've talked to hundreds of people who have been stuck in a toxic relationship, and so many of them say they just forget the negative times. They literally just cannot recall the bad and just remember the good. This happens especially when you manage to break away, but then the toxic person starts to manipulate you and lure you back in again. And let me know in the comments if you experienced that too. Or maybe you just cannot stop missing your toxic ex. You keep recalling the good and keep wondering whether they were really toxic or not. What you do against that is simply write all the toxic things down that happened in the entire relationship. Every time your ex was toxic, abusive, invalidated your feelings, blamed you, made you feel like you're not good enough, all of these things, write them down in a list. And if you cannot remember much, then just start today and write down one thing and keep adding on to it as more things happen. Writing all of this down can help you start to break the trauma bond bit by bit. Ideally, you read through the entire list. Every time you start missing your toxic ex, every time you question yourself, every time your toxic ex reaches out, every time you have an urge to reach out, and every time you question whether you made the right decision or not. I talk about the toxicity list all the time, and it's one of the very first exercises that I give all people whom I talk to. It has helped dozens, if not even hundreds of people to let go and start breaking away from the toxic relationship. But when you start letting go and start healing, often there's so much that you want to say to them. You want to tell them what they did, how they hurt you, or maybe you just want to expose them and let them know that you know who they are. Well, don't. Because that's exactly what they want. Toxic people thrive on attention and drama. Maybe you've heard the saying, don't wrestle with a pig, because you'll get dirty and the pig likes it. The exact same thing applies here. Instead of telling them, use the third technique, which is writing a letter. I know it sounds extremely simple, but as I said before, the simplest techniques are often the most effective ones. And the act of writing things down, ideally with pen and paper, helps your brain to process them. Like this, you can get out everything that you want to say without actually needing to talk to them and giving them supply. Important, of course, don't send it to them. Keep it for yourself, or maybe even burn it as a small ritual to let the negativity go. I had a client once and she wrote a letter on her phone in her notepad. And while writing the letter, she had so much anger coming up that she couldn't stop herself from sending it. There are 3 important lessons that we can learn here. First of all, ideally, you use pen and paper. Of course, so you cannot impulsively send the letter by accident, but also because using pen and paper helps your brain to process all of these things more effectively. So whenever possible, instead typing something out on your notepad, use actual pen and paper. Secondly, feel your feelings. It's good when feelings come up. This way you can start letting them out and start processing them. The only place your feelings can hurt you is stuck inside of you, but you need to actually feel through them to process them. For anger example, you can take a pillow and scream into it or punch it, but let the feelings out. And the third thing is, always do the necessary healing work. See, the goal of all healing is indifference. My client sends a letter which could have been a very bad thing, and it did trigger her ex to bombard her with messages. But since she already did some healing work with me, she wasn't triggered like crazy by this anymore and felt mostly indifferent about it. Also, when you start writing, there might be a lot coming up inside of you. I had another client once and she wrote 30 pages in one sitting and then even more pages on following days. That's okay. Whatever is inside of you needs to be processed and needs to come out. So just continue writing till you've all said what you wanted to say. And if more comes up on the following days, keep writing so you can sustainably process it. Often there are deep emotional wounds inside of you. Wounds that have already been there before the toxic relationship and caused you to end up in the toxic relationship in the first place. In order to sustainably heal and not fall back into the same situation ever again, it's important to heal these deep wounds at their root. And the next journaling technique can help you with getting to this root. Following the why. But before we get into that real quick, if you got any value out of the video so far, it would be amazing if you could leave a like. It helps the video to get seen by more people and it would really make my day. Alright, now let's get into the technique. When you are in a toxic relationship, the toxic relationship is likely just a symptom of a deeper root cause. The question becomes, what is that root cause and how can you get there? And we do that by asking ourselves why and just following it deeper. So let's look at an example at how this could look like. You could start with the question, why do I allow my partner to overstep my boundaries? The answer to that may be because I'm a people pleaser. So the next question would be, why am I a people pleaser? And the answer to that may be, because I feel like I have to put others first. Following the why all the way deeper, ask yourself, why do I feel like I have to put others first? The answer to that may be, because I fear that they will reject me otherwise. So the next question is, why do I fear that they will reject me otherwise? The answer here may be, because that's what I'm used to. So the question is, why am I used to that? And the answer to that may be, because I always got rejected as a child by my parents. And here we are at one of the deepest levels. This is what you actually want to look at, work on and heal within yourself. When using this following the why technique or asking yourself deeper questions, there are two ways to go about it. First, you just write down the question and then answer with the very first thing that comes to your mind. Ideally, you don't even want to think about the question. You just want to keep writing and just write down the very first thing. This is your subconscious speaking. This is what subconsciously comes up. It may sound weird, you may have an urge to edit whatever you write down, but just write down whatever comes up first without thinking. The second thing is of course the opposite, where you sit down with the question and really deeply think about it and just let it go on in your mind and really question, why is that? Where is this coming from? And really think about it very deeply. I recommend you try both ways and see what works better for you or where both ways lead to. You can use this journaling technique for every trigger that you have or everything that you're struggling or dealing with in life. Remember to always go deeper. We don't want to treat symptoms. It will lead you nowhere. We want to go deeper, get to the actual root cause, and then work on healing that, so the symptoms can naturally and automatically resolve themselves. Of course, the specific root causes will be individual for you, but to gain a deeper understanding of why people end up in toxic relationships and what to do to actually heal from that, I'd highly recommend you watch the video right over here. Thank you so much for watching the whole video and being part of my community. If you watch my videos frequently or maybe even know me from Instagram, let me know in the comments. Where are you from? Where do we know each other from? Let me know and let's talk a little bit. See you soon.